Matt Walsh, and he had 32 no 3.2 million followers, and he compared Trump and Hitler. So I think this has to be stopped.
Well, we stop it hopefully on November 5th.
Okay, let's hope. All right. Hello, welcome to Cheyenne's Forum. Today is October 28th, and welcome our dear friend Tom. Tom, how are you?
I'm fine. Good to see you.
Good to see you. And Tom, you see my background.
I
It's
see
from,
that.
yeah, yesterday, the huge rally in New York. It is just so beautiful. I think the color's beautiful, and then the atmosphere is just phenomenal. So I put this as my background. And then you know that my question today with you is about the rally itself. But before we start, I'd like to introduce Tom. He worked in FBI for 30 years, and for 5 years, he worked as Assistant Director of FBI, and he's retired now. Again, thank you so much for coming to our broadcast. And Tom, I just like to know your overall thought about the rally in New York yesterday.
I think the rally, when you start watching the broadcast of it from earlier in the day, especially uh, Right Side Broadcasting Network on the internet, RSBN, they started their coverage, I don't know, maybe noon or something.
Right.
So you could see the parade of key people that actually spoke. When the Democrats have a rally, they want to bring in Beyonce or some other celebrity, actor, actress, movie star, singer.
Mhm.
When the Republicans, their idea of a celebrity are accomplished people like Elon Musk, like
Mhm.
some of the others that they had, the Trump family, both Eric, Don, Lara Trump speaking, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., all of these people that are superstars in the country, in the world of government and politics,
Mhm.
or industry or science to get up and speak on behalf of Donald Trump and saying how badly the country needs his leadership in the White House
Mhm.
and to take over the country. And, when you see that compared to anything the Democrats could do, it was just incredible. And it goes back to, you remember earlier in the summer
Mhm.
comparing the Republican National Convention
Mhm.
and how dynamic and exciting most of that was. And then, compared to the Democratic National Committee Convention, which was more like a sleep disorder clinic. If you wanted to take a nap, that's a good one to tune into
Mhm.
to get put to sleep. So
Mhm.
I think the comparison just continues that there is no comparison of
Mhm.
starting at the top, Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. It's just incredible how
Exactly.
stupid she is in the first place. And, that the analysts and experts and pollsters have been telling her and her campaign that they're on the wrong track as a campaign, that
Mhm.
they're not going to be successful in trying to attract, especially independent voters, or maintain the base that they used to have, black
Mhm.
males, for example, or Hispanic voters. And so instead of trying to learn from the mistakes that they've been making for the last 2 months, they
Mhm.
double down on it and make it worse.
Mhm.
So I think that, I think when I see that, I'm glad to see it because I hope they expose themselves. I hope that they show their true colors, their true policies of what they're going to be, or lack of policies, their
Mhm.
inability to articulate any strategy for the country
Right.
that's going to return the country to a successful economy. So and when Trump talks about making America great again,
Mhm.
they call that racist. Oh, he was going back to a time when, whites dominated and blacks were, subject to Jim Crow laws or worse. And that's not at all what it means. It means that there's a time, even 4 years, at this point, 4 years ago, when
Mhm.
the economy was the most successful it had ever been and
Mhm.
successful for everybody, not
Mm.
just elite white people, millionaires become increasing their wealth, but blacks and Hispanics and women, all of Asian, all of the groups that were way better off, their employment numbers, their income numbers, their status in the country
Right.
dramatically improved during the Trump administration. And that's why in every one of the interviews that Kamala Harris has done, the first question usually is, do you think Americans are better off today than they were 4 years ago? She never answers the question.
She
Well, I
answered.
was in the middle class and my mother
That's
did
her
this. And
words.
I grew up in a neighborhood where people really cared for their lawns. That was very important. And she goes into which even the Democrats call that word salad. And in
Mhm.
fact, her interview with Anderson Cooper on CNN, where he asked a couple of fair and difficult questions for her that they should have seen coming for weeks and weeks, that these are the number one questions you're going to be asked. And then she gets flustered and angry and can't answer the questions. And so even noticing, and I hate to watch CNN anymore, but noticing after these rallies, by the way, I do flip. I want to see what the panels on Fox News, uh, Newsmax, and CNN, what do their panelists say? The people that they've brought in to analyze
Mhm.
what was on. And so you had people like Obama's campaign manager, David Axelrod,
Mhm.
who was on the panel on CNN.
Mhm.
And he referred to her answers, he referred to the whole interview as word salad city. Now, the Republicans have been calling her responses word salad. That's became the nicknames of just the mishmash of answers that she gives and lack of coherence.
Mhm.
But here's David Axelrod, one of the most influential people in the Democratic Party,
Mhm.
on CNN, and he says, word salad city. You
Mhm.
have Van Jones, the African American analyst. He's on there saying he's sick of it. He's sick of her non-answers and her word salad going in circles. Dana Bash, others on the CNN panel
Mhm.
that are very experienced in politics and or journalism. I got
Mhm.
to know Dana Bash very well when I was a contributor at CNN for 10 years.
Uh-huh.
And I had a lot of respect for her.
Mhm.
And she even included in that these answers that she gives are incoherent. And as she put it, how is that going to help her close the deal with independents? How is she going to be able to sell her programs to young people in a variety of segments of the society? Basically saying she's not. She's
Mhm.
not going to be successful in accomplishing what she really needs to accomplish this
Mhm.
close to election day.
Mhm.
So I think that the debate um, on CNN, when she does these debates on what should be friendly venues and they backfire, then you look at the rallies that she's been holding.
Mhm.
Now, on the morning, yesterday morning, um, she's holding a rally in a church in Philadelphia somewhere,
Mhm.
or she's holding other rallies where she promises that Beyonce is coming and oh, you're going to be able to
That's
see
in fact,
Beyonce perform.
yeah.
And Beyonce comes in, talks a minute or two, and sounds very insincere. She just goes through her little speech and
Mhm.
leaves.
Yep.
And the crowd begins booing Kamala. She can't get past the booing
Right.
because they know they've been tricked. They
Mhm.
didn't come to see her. They didn't come
Yeah.
to see the rally or to express support for the Democratic Party. They
Mhm.
came to see Beyonce. And then
Mhm.
when she leaves, that's not what they were told. Again, they thought false advertising. Meantime, Trump, people are standing out in freezing weather.
Mhm.
How long to get
20,
into Madison
24
Square
hours
Garden?
before.
Yeah.
It's like
And
it's
that's, the venue is about 20,000 people.
Mhm.
He probably has 50, 75, 100,000 show up trying to get in,
Mhm.
thinking they might get lucky and get in.
Mhm.
And, that's the group that comes there. They
Right.
didn't come there to see a singer or a country western singer or anybody. They came to see Donald Trump and the people that are supportive of him that are very important also. right now in the Republican Party. Not
Mhm.
just the Trump family, which is important, but
Ex-
again, RFK Jr.,
mhm.
Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk,
The whole team.
one after the other of people that they're celebrities because of their accomplishments, not because of what color their skin is or if
Mhm.
they're transgender or some other goofy thing. It's what they have done that
Mhm.
is so phenomenal.
Mhm.
And people want to see them and hear from them and learn how they do that, how they become so successful.
Exactly. Thank you so much. This is a great speech. It's a great statement about what do you think about yesterday, the whole rally. And just like you mentioned, Kamala Harris and her team never learned from the mistake. Remember on CNN, she was asked, "Is there anything that you regret, or you're gonna do some like improvement if you have choice?" And she just started word salad and say nothing. That means she didn't even realize that her the mistake she had made and want to do some change.
And she was blasted for
Mhm.
that answer. Then
Right.
she goes on The View with
Uh-huh.
that highly accomplished group of women,
Uh-huh. Well, yeah.
and she gets asked on The View, well, all these things, of the last couple of years, is there anything you would have done differently or
Mhm.
should have done differently?
Pretty
And
much the
the
similar
answer
part.
is nothing comes to mind. No, now that's the policy she talks about. She was
Right.
the last one in the room with Joe Biden. When the president came to a decision, she was right there. They were her decisions also.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she's the last one in the room with the complete debacle of how we exited Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
People holding on to the airplanes as they take off and falling to their death,
Mm-hmm.
or 13 American service members being killed because they chose to do all of this action at the small airport in Kabul instead of in Bagram, the huge airport, which is about, and I've flown in and out of Bagram a couple of times. It's about 50 miles outside of Kabul. And you
Mm-hmm.
drive, narrow roads through the mountains to get there. But when you get there, it's an enormous, probably bigger than any base that we have in this country.
Oh, really?
And it's huge. And it's near the Chinese border. And it's like 50 miles or less to where the Chinese make their nuclear weapons. And we were not going to give up that airport. We were going to give up, and we weren't. And Trump was insistent with the generals that our stuff be removed, that the $85 billion in brand new equipment, helicopters, airplanes,
Mm-hmm.
machine guns, rifles, missile launchers, all of that,
Mm-hmm.
Trump wanted it removed. Well,
Right.
then what happens is, and the military doesn't want to do it. Then, Biden comes to power and he just says he didn't care, just leave it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to leave out of Kabul airport, which is tiny compared to Bagram. And that's why you had those crowds, the people there, the soldiers are trying to keep peace in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of downtown of Kabul,
Mm-hmm.
capital of Afghanistan. And meantime, Bagram is sitting unnoticed, except later, once we're out, then the Chinese just basically took it over. And they now have access to our helicopters, all of the equipment. Some of the most sophisticated equipment
You
we
mean the
have there.
Chinese people have the assets to the
Yeah.
equipment?
And
Oh,
and some of the equipment that we left behind, for example,
mhm.
um, night vision goggles, the night vision
Oh,
equipment
right,
we
right,
have. That comes in a series of generations. And
right.
so as they come up with a newer generation, it's top secret. Nobody can have it. We don't export it even to our allies. Only our military can have it. They
Mhm.
just left it. They just left everything. And so the Chinese can either use it directly or
Mhm.
The Taliban's not going to use night vision goggles for their helicopters or any of that. So now the Chinese have that stuff. They can either use directly the already finished product that
Mhm.
they got, or reverse engineer it to make their own, which they couldn't do before. They had no idea how to make it. And so that's the way it was. Biden just thought the accomplishment would be we got out. Well, it wasn't an accomplishment. It was a disaster. And Kamala Harris, when he did that decision, she openly bragged about she was the last person in the room with Biden when they made that. So that basically says his policies were her policies. And that's why, the supporters of Trump, including Trump, have been saying when she's going to do this and she's going to do that, why didn't you do it 4 years ago? You've been in office 4 years. Why didn't you do it?
Yeah.
No good
Well,
answer for that. Now she has to go into, well, I was in the middle class and people in my neighborhood kept their lawns nice. And no, that's not policy. That's not an answer. That's evasion or just stupidity.
yeah. Well, Tom, thank you so much. And this is the first time I know that the equipment that we left in Afghanistan have Chinese people have the direct access to get to the top secret, the military secret. So I
Yeah.
just wonder, it is what they have done in Afghanistan to left the advanced equipment there. Are they on purpose or are they just purely stupid to do that? It
Our
is
military?
ridiculous. Yeah. Why they do that? That they know Chinese people can get access to that? Of course they know. Then
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
why they do
I
that?
think I think Biden didn't care. He just wanted to be able to say, we got out by a certain date and that's it. Didn't care how or who got left. Not only that, but he and we, the American government, had promised people in Afghanistan that helped our military, translators and analysts and other
Mm-hmm.
people that were citizens of that country. We
Right,
promised that you help us and we'll help you come to the US. We'll help you get out.
right, of
Well,
course.
not only do we not rescue them, we leave thousands of Americans behind and don't rescue, we just leave them behind. So even to this day, we have American citizens that are basically in hiding in Afghanistan, hoping the Taliban doesn't find them and torture them and kill them. That's so don't just have $85 billion in top of the line military equipment and hardware, but you have Americans themselves, our citizens, left behind to the mercy of the Taliban. And
Wow.
Biden just seems oblivious. When the 13 dead American soldiers are being brought back to Dover, Delaware, is the base that our evacuated casualties always are brought back to. You have Biden. Not only did he not care that he left all that equipment or people or anything behind, or that these 13 soldiers get killed, but
Mhm.
he's on the tarmac at Dover Air Force Base looking at his watch. And you had parents that
Remember
were
that.
there to call him out on that and say how terrible he is. And
Right.
he was more concerned about looking at his watch, not just once, several times
Hmm.
during the time it took for the plane to land and the coffins to be taken off the plane.
Right.
He was too busy looking at his watch.
Yeah. I
So
I remember that pictures. It's no respect at all.
no,
So
no.
disgraceful, so disgraceful. So this is a great example of this Astor administration, this Astor group of people who is control the American right now. So we have to vote them out. This is what we can do, and we must do that. And I have some good news from my audience. And then this guy, I think he's a gentleman. He said, Cheyenne, I just finished my vote. Yay! So happy early vote. Okay, yeah. So thank you so much for sharing the
Yeah, my
strong.
wife and several of our friends are at the voting places in our area now, every day almost. Uh,
Volunteer.
they hand out brochures if people
Oh,
come or they want sample ballots
wow.
or want to talk to them after they've cast their vote. So, obviously she's there in a tent supporting Trump
Mhm.
and Democrats are there, supporting the other side. And the people come out and they are all excited about voting for Trump. They're
It's,
all excited when they come out finishing their voting
uh-huh.
and to say that they made this accomplishment. They voted, they did their part to try
Right,
to fix this country. And they
right.
all look at it like it's a small part, but it's a part.
Yeah.
And hopefully they're all going to add up later to show that Trump's going to win. And
Yeah.
it's because of all this support. And what's interesting is the number of voters that are coming early to vote. This was an issue the Democrats had for several years,
Hmm.
that to vote early. And even Trump, as recently as 2020, were telling Republicans, no, vote on election day, paper
I
ballot, show
remember.
your ID, do not vote early. Well,
Hmm.
they quickly, first of all, then they got rid of Ronna McDaniel, the chairman of the RNC, who
Hmm.
was advocating that also. They got rid of her. And
Hmm.
now they've got Whatley from North Carolina and Lara Trump are the two co-chairs of the Republican National Committee.
Hmm.
And they've been preaching from early in the spring, as the summer was passing and we're getting into voting season,
Hmm.
vote as soon as you can.
Right.
Vote. And then examples of what can happen. You see the hurricanes, the two hurricanes, especially Helene and the damage it did in North Carolina and Tennessee, Georgia,
Hmm.
that, if you waited to vote and the weather comes in and wipes out your polling place, you
Hmm.
might you might not be able to vote. You might not be able, there might not be anywhere for you to go to cast your vote, and it'll be too late for mail or other methods. So the Republicans, I think, have been taking heed this time to vote. And the early attendance at these polling places, my wife and other of her friends are saying the same thing, that the
Hmm.
number of Republicans showing up to vote as soon as they can is a huge number. And it's
Right.
going to make a big difference between now and November 5.
Hmm. So as of things stand, do you think does the strategy of early voting work? It works, right? It should help
Well,
Trump.
the problem is it does work. It worked for the Democrats now for several elections in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And now the Republicans are matching them and
Mm-mm.
saying, okay, if that's the game you want to play, we'll do that.
Right. Yeah.
So the
Exactly.
advantage to it also is that even for Democrats or independents that vote early,
Mm-hmm.
Kamala Harris has yet to make her case. What are her real proposals going to be? What are her policies going to be? So if she hasn't won independents over now, they may just go ahead and vote for Trump. They may go ahead and vote for Republican. So it's going to be too late for her to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Even today, 1 week before the election, it's too
Right.
late. She's
Right.
not going to she's not going to get people all of a sudden, oh, I just heard her policy for the first time and she's great. I'm going to vote for it. People
Mm-hmm.
are going to vote Democratic in many cases because they've just been lifelong Democrats. It's a
Right.
habit. Their parents were Democrats and
Mm-hmm.
they think it's still the party of John F. Kennedy or prominent Democrats over the years,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's sinking into a lot of them. And the other thing, which I thought interesting in the last couple of weeks,
Mm-hmm.
is you notice Obama going on the campaign trail to criticize black men,
Yep.
that they must be sexist, they must be, something wrong with them, that they're not voting for Kamala Harris.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching later interviews of many of younger black men that he
Mm-hmm.
was insulting, basically, who were
Right.
saying, "Who is this guy?
Yeah. Why I
Well,
have to listen to
he's
you?
been out of office a long time. Who is Barack Obama?" Or
Right.
maybe he's the guy that caused a lot of the racial divide in this country, which that's true.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't have the sway that he thought he was going to have. And now you have Michelle Obama out on the campaign trail, insulting people as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the public isn't buying it.
Mm-hmm.
They got into office and they might have been community organizers in Chicago when they were younger and all that. Well, now they're multimillionaires with oceanfront preaching that the climate is going to be a disaster. Oh yeah, well they bought oceanfront property.
Yep.
Uh, didn't it's not a disaster to them. They didn't worry about it when they bought their property.
Mm-hmm.
So they know that Green New Deal is a scam. They know
Mm-hmm.
there's not going to be. And you look at it now. You remember when Ocasio-Cortez said, "We have 12 years. It's an existential threat.
Mm-hmm.
The globe is going to be damaged beyond repair. We're going to have flooding. The oceans are going to rise. All of these bad things." Well, now we're about at least halfway through her 12 years. What's
Mm-hmm.
changed? What is the ocean ridge has arisen an inch, half an inch at all? So the stuff that they've come up with, even time by itself will show that they were lying.
Yeah.
That, and she has no scientific background for her to say, I've studied this for years and I majored in, meteorology or climate studies in college. She has
Mm-hmm.
no background. She just pulled that out of her hat.
Right.
And I'm being nice to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's a lie. She just made it up she woke up one day and said, this would be a good lie to tell. We have 12 years as a planet to survive. Well,
So more and more people realize that they're cheating us.
yeah.
This is a good sign. This is a good sign. So, Tom, what do you feel is the most powerful message yesterday? So you watched the whole thing, or you watched
Yeah, I
part?
did. Oh, there's so many all day. The
Right.
speakers before Trump,
Mm-hmm.
his kids, Elon, uh,
Yeah.
you name it, Tulsi Gabbard. That was another thing. I was so happy. I had met her in
Mm-hmm.
person
Mm-hmm.
in the green room at CNN when I was still a contributor there years ago.
Uh-huh.
And she in person is every bit as nice as what you see on television. She was so nice.
Yeah.
And we're talking, and I mentioned to her that my wife and I were going to be going to Honolulu the
Mm-hmm.
following week.
Right.
And she gives me the name and number of her
Mhm.
office director in Honolulu, her
Right.
congressional office. You call him, he'll take care of, he'll do this, he'll do that, give you anything you need.
Right.
And I couldn't wait to actually meet him and, compliment him on working for her. And then what happened is the night before I was supposed to go meet him
Mhm.
is when the mass murders happened at the nightclub uh,
Right.
in where was that? The Pulse nightclub, I think. Yeah,
Right.
and I was on the air on CNN most of the night live by telephone
Mhm.
because of the vast time difference between the east coast of the U.S. and Hawaii, which is depending on the time of year, 6 or 7 hours. They don't they don't switch their clocks to daylight savings time. But in
Mhm.
any event, CNN was begging me to cut the trip short and come back to Washington to go on the air. So I didn't make it to meet her staff uh,
Oh.
at the Nimitz office building in Honolulu.
Mhm.
But she couldn't have been nicer, more
Right.
professional, you name it.
Right.
She still sends me emails. So I support her 100%. Her
Right.
military background, her common sense, and all of that. And
Mhm.
so when she got into putting down Kamala Harris during the debate a couple of years ago, which
Mhm.
caused Kamala to leave the campaign, to
Yeah.
quit.
Mhm.
And then, the criticisms that she's made since, even Hillary Clinton calling her a Russian agent.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
here's a woman, 2 tours of duty in
Mhm.
Iraq, um, as a medical person in the military, in the reserves. She's the last person that's any kind of an agent of Putin or Russia or anybody else. She's a patriot.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, to see her last week show up at one of the Trump rallies and say, I have joined the Republican Party. Now she's a full board Republican. And I was
Right.
so happy to see that because that's where
Yeah.
she belongs.
Yeah.
Uh,
I agree.
so,
Yeah, totally agree. I met her actually in person in 2019 in Iowa for the Prime. So she is the most careful people. She's nice, she's careful, she's so down to earth. And
right,
she just do what she promised to do. For example, there is a huge parade at Iowa. And these guys from Democrats, they most of them said, "Okay, we'll be there and we'll walk the parade." Indeed, she is the only one keep her promise, come to the parade and finish the parade. She's the only one.
yep.
So from that, I know that she is a real person. She's a real deal. And
Yeah,
then,
it'll be good, and I don't know what capacity. Trump will appoint her to in the administration, but she and RFK Jr. and
Oh yeah.
and others will be tremendous assets. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I
To
hope she has something to do with Department of Defense because she absolutely has
Mhm.
been so critical of the
Right.
Democratic Party's constantly wanting to go to war all over the world, all
Mm-hmm.
the time.
Right.
And she basically says no. She's actually
Mm-hmm.
treated the casualties of war in the war zone in the Middle East and knows how terrible it is. While
Right.
these guys never saw any
Mm-hmm.
battle in their life, but they want to send people to die, in the Middle East or anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she'll be a tremendous asset. Even if she's just an informal advisor to Trump, it'll
Mm-hmm.
be worth it.
Oh yeah.
RFK, has become an expert in the medical
Mm-hmm.
government field. The
Yeah.
book he wrote criticizing Fauci, uh,
Uh-huh. Right.
so he knows, all about how the FDA operates and how the Ministry of Health and how we funded the Wuhan virus. We
Mm-hmm.
provided the money, Fauci provided the money,
Right.
gain of function research, so
Mm-hmm.
that the Chinese could figure out how to make that virus even more dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Exactly. Talking about him, actually, he mentioned yesterday several names of the federal agents that need to be reorganized, maybe just cut off. So the name that he mentioned is FDA, NIH, CDC, and CIA. So is there any more need to be done in your opinion, rather than these NIH, FDA, CDC, and CIA? What else? What do
well,
you?
the top management of the FBI needs to be fired. They need to go,
Mm-hmm,
starting with Christopher Wray. The scandals that some of the FBI policies got into under
mm-hmm,
Comey. And so Trump fires Comey when he takes Chris Christie's advice to
right.
appoint Christopher Wray
Mm-hmm,
and later realizes Christie was sabotaging Trump on purpose because he didn't get a position in the administration like he wanted. But in any event, um, when what's his name? When the director takes over, he promises he's going to reform the
right.
FBI. This is all going to be straightened out. He's going to take care of it.
Mm-hmm,
And in the 7 or 8 years since, he's made it worse.
yeah.
And the reputation of the FBI, fortunately, internationally, the Bureau is still regarded as the top law enforcement agency in the world. But
Mm-hmm,
part of that is because their media hasn't reported all of the things that go on, like
mm-hmm,
our like to a large extent our media has. And so Christopher Wray is a liar. He's
mm-hmm.
mismanaged the FBI, or
Right.
he's managed them in the negative direction that he wanted and Merrick Garland and Joe Biden wanted, which is basically use the Department of Justice, use lawfare to go after your political enemies, and that had never been done before. And
Mm-hmm,
they have raised that to the highest level. So they go after Trump or Steve Bannon or Paul Manafort or some of the other ones.
mm-hmm,
And, it goes on to this day. Pro-life people, pro-life organizations, you name it. And the damage that they've done, I hope it can be fixed in this country. The
mm-hmm.
reputation will still be there internationally for a while, but
Right.
I hope that the upper management of the FBI is replaced
Mm-hmm.
with patriots,
Sure.
loyal Americans who came up, as we used to refer to it when you're brand new as an agent in the FBI, who came in as baby agents and then over their career, are patriots, that they believe in fair and honest law enforcement and not this lawfare that's been going on for the last couple of years
Mm-hmm.
at the direction of Christopher Wray
Right.
and Merrick Garland.
Right. So how about Homeland Security? What do you think about this department? Do we still need it? Only change the management, or it should be reorganized? What do you think?
Well, it should be reorganized, but I think that that's another one under mismanagement
Mhm.
with Secretary Mayorkas, who's a complete moron, in my opinion.
Yep.
So he's horrible. And some of the changes that were made when Homeland Security was created after 9/11, like
Right.
2 years later,
Mhm.
one of the things they did was they took Secret Service, which used to be part of the Department of Justice, and moved it under Homeland Security, which made it now political. And
Hmm.
we've seen the damage that that has done,
Yeah.
specifically in the assassination attempts on Trump. That was enough right there to show you how Secret Service is so thoroughly mismanaged to
Hmm.
this day.
Hmm.
And that has to change. So they need probably to get Secret Service to be
Oh.
independent, get it out of Homeland Security, take the politics away,
Hmm.
whether it goes back in the Department of Justice or it's a separate independent agency. The FBI is part of the Department of Justice. And the whole time I was there, that didn't mean a lot. It was a very, very independent agency.
Agency,
And that
right.
all changed under Merrick Garland and Christopher. Well, it started with Comey and then Christopher Wray for sure.
Mhm.
So those those agencies need to be independent and they need to be honest.
Right. Like Trump said yesterday that the mistake that he made in first term is he used some wrong person, put them on wrong positions. And I understand that because he's new to Washington, D.C., and there are so many people around him is not as a good heart to them. They want to do something harm him. So I think it's going to be much better for this term. What do you think? He can
Yeah, I agree. I
for-
hopefully I think he's learned a
Mhm.
lot.
Right.
Not everybody can learn everything. So if you elect somebody that's been a senator, now he's president,
Mhm.
or a governor, now president, they don't know everybody in Washington. They don't know
Yeah.
the president has hundreds of positions that he has to nominate somebody to take control of,
Mhm.
hundreds of agencies,
Right.
cabinet members, you name it.
Mhm.
No one person is going to know
Mhm.
all of the people that he needs to know. He's going to have to rely on loyal subordinates,
Mhm.
the transition committees that they put together to pick people to go into the administration.
Mhm.
And so, in a way, there's nothing they can do except they're going to have to trust some people and
Right.
hope they're trusting the right people and that
Right.
they're being given appropriate, professional, honest advice of who to pick.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, you mentioned Stephen Bannon. He will be out of the jail tomorrow. Actually, he should be out of jail last week, but they
Yeah,
hold him
yeah,
because he's a powerful person. So I guess they want to keep him as long as possible. Just do not give him the access to the public speech because
right.
he's a powerful
Because he
person.
has a huge following. He's like Joe Rogan. He's got
Right,
you know, thousands of people that follow his broadcast and
right.
his podcast, all of that. So that's true. I heard last week a long interview by Tucker Carlson of Paul Manafort. Now, Manafort had been um, Trump's campaign manager in 2016,
Mhm.
and he had done some work in Ukraine, and so they go after him. He's one of the first people in
Mhm.
Trump's orbit that they went after,
Mhm.
and they went after him because he had been in Ukraine and supposedly didn't declare himself. He did all the things that they claim that he shouldn't have done that actually Hunter Biden did do, and they didn't bother with.
Mhm.
Sign up as an enemy of a foreign state and all that.
Mhm.
And anyway, I heard his interview, and I didn't even realize that he is a brilliant person, Manafort, and analyzing the election back then and then analyzing the current campaign. He is very, very smart and very knowledgeable of
Mhm.
what's going on and how it's managed or mismanaged.
Mhm.
So I
It's,
think that he'll be someone that Trump could also gain valuable advice from.
of course, you want to share some points that he shared with Tar Carson that make you feel so impressive?
Well, he talked about the economy and the different decisions that get made regarding
Mhm.
economic matters, and he knew a lot about it, and he knew a lot about what was going on in the. He didn't know the complete amount of corruption in the
Right.
Ukraine concerning Biden and Hunter Biden,
Mhm.
but he knew behind the scenes that there was things going on that
Mhm.
didn't look right or sound right. And then, of course, he becomes the victim. They go after. They wanted him to lie basically and
Ah,
testify against Trump. That
mhm.
Trump did illegal things with the Ukrainians, which he never did. And even ironically, even Zelensky backed up Trump and said, no, Trump didn't do those things.
Right. I remember that.
So, yeah. So, anyway, you have Manafort saying that, that he didn't do that. And he wouldn't testify against Trump, and that's why they prosecuted him.
That's a good
All he
person.
had to do was all he had to do was make up lies and say bad things about Donald Trump, and that would have been it when they went to impeach Trump twice.
Well,
So
this is a great comparison. He did not do that, and he insists, even though they're gonna go after him, but someone did that to make their, well, personal gain. So this is
yeah,
a
sure.
interesting comparison. And then I remember Trump said yesterday that Matt Gaetz have a little secret with him to get back the Senate. So he doesn't want to tell anybody. He said, we do have a little secret to get back to the Senate. So what do you guess? What's your guess about the secret? How they have some secret weapon to get back the Senate?
Other than if they know that some of the key candidates, that some of their dirty laundry or dirty schemes that they've been involved in or something, I don't know. But he may be in a position to know bad things about some of the other people.
Well, so what do you think about the Senate? Do you think that we there is chance that we take back the Senate?
Yeah, a lot of the experts are more confident that the Senate is going to go Republican than the Democrats are going to take over the House. So they're more confident about gaining the Senate, but they're also thinking that the House might be lost. So I don't know. I don't see how
Well,
the
why?
Democrats take either one, to be honest.
Right, right. I remember Trump actually say a lot of good words to Johnson, Speaker Johnson, and said
Yeah.
he's great and he has done great jobs. And then some people said he's nice, a little face with little glasses, and think that he's really nice. And he said, no, 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 he's not nice. He's actually powerful. Seems like Trump really like him. Do
Yeah.
you feel or is a strategy that Trump used to
I
him?
think that probably, in the case of the speaker, it's holding the line.
Hmm.
They keep even to this day making so much of the bipartisan law to fix the border and all of that. And that particular law, which he helped hold the line against that law passing, especially when Donald Trump told the Republicans, don't pass that law.
Hmm.
And the main reason was, and everybody forgets, that the law, they weren't going to close the border except after so many thousand came in, then okay, shut it down this month. Well,
Hmm.
it was basically going to still allow millions of people to cross illegally and then pretend, you would have this picture of, oh, they're closing the border, and they really weren't. And Johnson took a lot, and Trump took a lot of heat in
Hmm.
not passing that and standing up against that because they knew it was a fraud.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Right.
Kamala Harris to this day, part of her, what she's promising to do is pass that law if
Hmm.
she's president.
Right.
So
Right. So then talk about the election. So we have one more week, the last week. And then which swing states must we take to win the election? And there are seven swing states, and which two or three that we have to get in order to win?
I think Pennsylvania probably is one of the keys to that.
Sure. Why?
Some of the other ones wouldn't be as devastating to not win, but Pennsylvania, again, the blue wall of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, maybe Michigan, Ohio,
Mhm.
North Carolina, some of those. But I think out of that group, probably Pennsylvania is one of the key states.
So why Pennsylvania is so important?
I think because of the type of people that'll vote Republican
Oh,
and the fact that Harris has made a big deal about first she's banning no fracking, like
mhm,
under the Biden administration,
mhm,
continuing that policy, and then oh no, I'm going to allow for I'm going to she's pandering to Pennsylvania voters of
Hmm.
all the support she's going to give their energy industry, which is pretty much a lie.
Hmm.
And I think that's why. So all of the effort that she is making and her campaign is making to win Pennsylvania, if they fail to convince the Pennsylvania voters, they're
Hmm.
pretty much not going to be able to convince anybody else. And I think that that's why it's an
Oh,
influential key state.
oh, I see. So that's why they spend a lot of time at Pennsylvania. And I see that Kamala Harris went to Philadelphia yesterday, and she went visit a barber shop, and then a young uh, black male and talked to her, and he is a teacher, and he just talked to her a little bit about the teaching. And the first sentence Kamala Harris said, "I cannot believe my ear." She said, unfortunately, we only have 1% of Black teachers in our teaching force. So it's not enough representative. And the first thing she's talking about is a race. I think that's the only card that she can play right now. But does
Well,
people
usually, even before she plays that card, everything is against Trump. Trump's
buy?
no good. Trump did this. Trump did that.
Exactly.
Even making up lies about what Trump's policies or where the country was. And the
Mhm.
Democrats, among the lies that they tell is that that Trump had already had bad policies that contributed to the inflation and all of the other issues. That's not true.
Nope.
And Trump has shown that one graph that resulted in him turning his head and not being killed,
Mhm.
where he shows on his last day
Mhm.
where illegal immigration was, and then
Mhm.
where it immediately spiked after Biden comes to power and opens the borders.
Mhm.
Now, one of the reasons, if you remember, excuse me, one of the reasons it spiked like that so quickly
Mhm.
was that all of these people were gathered in Mexico ready to pour in.
Yep.
All of these caravans, 50,000 to 80,000, 100,000, they had been working their way up from Guatemala and other places into Mexico. Now they're right at our border
Mhm.
waiting for Biden to take over and the board and the gates to be open. So they were ready to flood the gates immediately, and that's what happened. So
Yep.
you see that in that graph, a tremendous spike
Mhm.
as soon as Trump's out of office, that they were counting the minutes to be able to pour into the United States.
Mhm. Yep. So we have 7 days left, and this is the last stage of the campaign. And I saw that Kamala is kind of lost her mind. Yes, today she talked, talked to a reporter,
There
and
wasn't much there, so it'd be easy to misplace it.
I know. So she just compared the rally, New York rally, to the 1939 Nazi rally. She's comparing.
I honestly, I don't think she knows the history going back to 1939 of who had a rally or not. I think she heard that from Hillary Clinton. Hillary's been talking about since before the rally how the Nazis in 1939 took over Madison Square Garden and had this rally. And I think she's just echoing what Hillary Clinton said because I don't think she knows enough history to know what happened in 1939.
Mhm.
So you know, she wouldn't know some of the significant things that occurred, like September 1, 1939, Germany invades Poland.
Mhm.
That's the first really, really start of World War II. Before that, they took over, Czechoslovakia, parts of Austria. But really, on September 1, 1939, they invade Poland and that's the beginning of World War II. So for her to know anything about rallies or Madison Square Garden in 1939, I don't believe she knew that on her own. I think she heard Hillary Clinton, who's unbelievably evil,
Yeah.
say that Trump is trying to mimic the Nazis holding a rally in Madison Square Garden. Well, maybe he's trying to mimic Frank Sinatra, who had a major concert there, or the New York basketball team, the Knicks, or the Rangers, the hockey team. All of these major events that have been in Madison Square Garden
Mhm.
every year,
Right.
ever going back then to pick out that, oh yeah, in 1939, the Nazis had a party there or had a rally there. So I think that no, they're too stupid, too ignorant, too uneducated to really know that. Somebody put that in their head. And I don't think Kamala came up that I don't think Kamala ever read a book or a pamphlet or saw a documentary that talked about the German having a rally at Madison Square Garden. I think that Hillary and other people supporting her put
Mhm.
that out there, and I think that's where she got it.
I still thank you so much for your explanation, but I still just cannot believe that even Hillary Clinton mentioned this rally or Trump supporter as a Nazi. You're talking about half population of the states. You're saying these people are support Nazi? Are they out of their mind? And I just think that even she doesn't know about the history. What
She
about
don't
her?
know history, no. And
What about
what they didn't know then, even at the time, people in the country didn't really know the implications because Germany had also received good publicity. And one of the biggest American heroes in the 30s was Lindbergh. Charles Lindbergh had gone across the Atlantic and landed in Paris, and he was a national hero. And
Mhm,
he supported the Nazi Party of Germany. He supported all of that. And a
right.
lot of people thought, well, if he can endorse the government in Germany, maybe it's not so bad. So it wasn't until later when they denounced him as well as. But a lot of people don't know history in general. Lucky Lindbergh is still by many considered a national hero in the United States with the
Mhm,
first solo transatlantic flight in the
mhm,
spirit of St. Louis, his little
right,
airplane. And they
right.
don't realize later how Lindbergh was discredited for having multiple families in Europe, married to several women at the same time, having children
Oh,
and supporting two or three different families simultaneously.
really?
He was
That's
a bigamist. No, that very few people, and a lot of the media doesn't want to put that out. Well, he's a hero. We don't want to say bad things about him.
uh,
So Lindbergh was not quite the hero everybody says he is.
well, he's a hero, that's right, but he is a human being. So human
Yeah.
being made mistake. Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that Madison Square they have a lot of great concerts like Frank Sinatra. So I remember at the end of the rally yesterday, they sing New York, New York.
Exactly. I caught that at the time that instead of going immediately
Yeah,
to the Village People
right,
YMCA, if you
right,
ever think about that,
right.
here's Trump is supposed to be arch conservative, bigot, and all of that.
Uh,
And he uses the song by the Village People at the end of every rally. And he
mm,
gets caught up in YMCA, and you see
right.
Trump on the stage kind of slightly dancing, moving around a little bit. And what's
Yep.
interesting about that is that the Village People was, a neighborhood in New York City,
Mhm.
and they were all gay.
Yeah, yeah, right.
So, so this is a gay band
Uh-huh.
singing, young men go to the YMCA where other young men are living and staying. So it was like almost a call
Uh-huh.
to homosexuality. But in any event,
Right.
it's a great song. It's a very catchy tune and
Uh-huh.
all of that. But I noticed immediately that the
Uh-huh.
first song was New York, New York. And Trump really likes that opera singer that they bring out to sing it. And
Right.
he is really good. So,
His really he's seen
yeah.
at Butler, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
The after the rally, yeah. I forgot his name, but he's a really good singer. And then really like the song New York, New York. Like dun,
Yeah,
dun,
it's
dun.
a great song. It's a great
Yeah, it's
song.
golden age of New York, golden age of our country.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's see, some people here, our audience, they just say hi to you. And thank you so much, Tom, for coming here to yeah, to talk with us about this country, about this election is so important. And then oh, there's one person said, please ask Tom in what kind of condition we can change the election law of the states because I think he wants to have the paper ballot and finish counting in one day. But still, we have the state law on this area, right? So I think he or she just wants to ask, is there any possibility for have the paper ballot and counting the vote
Well,
for one
the way the Constitution's set up, each state controls
their
the
own?
procedures of the elections in their state. Now,
Okay.
the problem is that even when they want to have certain policies, corrupt Democratic judges step in and try to kill it. Now, there's a battle going on right now in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Oh, yeah.
Governor Youngkin, they had a huge effort, his
Mm-hmm.
attorney general, a huge effort to take non-citizens off the voting
Right.
rolls. The way
Mm-hmm.
they got on was that when you go get a driver's license, and most states allow anybody to get a license, they don't have to prove their citizenship. But
Mm-hmm.
when you get a license, there's typically in the application process somewhere where it asks you if you're willing to serve on a jury. And to be on the jury panel, you have to be a citizen.
Right.
And a lot of the people indicated on that application, I'm not a citizen.
Mm-hmm.
And so what Youngkin and the government of Virginia is trying to do is say, if you admitted that you're not a citizen, then that's
Thank
enough right there. We'll take your word for it. You're not a citizen. You should
right.
be removed.
Yeah.
And so they were removing so many thousand people that way.
Mm-hmm.
And now some judge steps in and says, you can't do that. So the Supreme, yesterday, I guess this morning,
Mm-hmm.
Virginia filed with the Supreme Court application for the Supreme Court because of the urgency of the election next week, the
Right.
Supreme Court to hear this case and overrule that judge so they
Right.
can continue to remove people off the ballots that are not citizens.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. Well, hopefully the Supreme Court will take that case very soon
Right.
and make that happen.
Right. And talk about the lawfare. I'm so glad you mentioned that. You know that on the Southern Appeal Court, uh, the Fifth Appeal Court, and they just ruled that you have to count the votes at the day. Any votes, any ballot after the day, you cannot account. So some people just ask, is this only for that area or for the whole nation?
Well, none of those type of rules are for the whole nation. Again,
Hmm.
it's the state by state procedures that they have.
That's
The
a federal,
national policies would be like you have now. At the national level, you can't vote in a national election if you're not a citizen.
right,
But procedurally, that was left up in the Constitution, was left to the states to
right, right,
decide
right.
that.
But the court I mentioned is a federal court. It's not a state court. So the fifth federal court just ruled that. So is that rule only stays in that area or the nation?
Theoretically. And that's always been a debate with federal courts, what they decide. If you remember, during the early part of the Trump administration, um, some judge in Hawaii, a Democratic judge, would say, "Stop building the wall. You can't build any more wall." And
Hmm.
so that was the debate that only judges that are affected directly in that jurisdiction should be able to make the rules like that. Um,
So
and that's never really been totally decided.
okay,
Eventually, Trump won every case
right,
and was able to, but it delayed him. Now you have Kamala Harris saying he didn't build much wall, he didn't finish it. Well, no, the Democrats fought him for 2 years, so he
right.
couldn't even get it. Then he finally just said, "Okay, it's a matter of national security, so we'll let the military do it," which was good policy, and he got ruled successful for that. But the idea of a federal judge stepping in and declaring something
Mhm.
constitutional or unconstitutional, it really isn't firm law of how far that jurisdiction goes.
I see. It's like a case by case.
Right.
Okay, great. But this is still good news because it's we can talk about that. We can discuss about that. That's a good sign.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Okay, great. Well, thank you so very much for coming to our podcast and to give us the analyst. And then this is the last week. again, vote, vote, vote. If you
Exactly.
not yet.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So next week, Tuesday, we can have our broadcast, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So do
I'll be broadcasting from the living room of my father
you, yeah,
in Madison, Illinois. So,
right. That's
and
good. So do you want to give?
going there to go, my wife and I are going there to watch the election with him and keep him company.
Yeah.
And he, it's interesting. He regards this, like we often hear, as the most important uh, election ever.
Right.
But he's been saying he's 94 years old, and
Uh-huh.
he's been saying that he has been keeping himself alive long enough to see Donald Trump go back to the White House. So this
Yeah.
election means everything to him, life and death to him that
Yeah.
Trump wins.
That's great. That's great. So we're gonna vote. So we're gonna make Trump win. We're gonna make him happy.
Yep.
Yeah. And then so I will see you next on Tuesday. And
Tuesday.
that should be will be a long day.
Yes, it will.
We
Yes,
wish
it
it's
will.
a happy ending. It's a happy day.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tom. Really
Thank you very much. My
thank
pleasure to be on with you.
thank you. I'll see you next week.
See you then.